Like, I can't wait till we're just like permanently outside, you know? Like, the lighting's not this, like, oh, whatever. And if it doesn't look good outside, it's nature. It's not my fault. Anyway, let's build a drop board. So hello everyone, thanks for coming outside with me today. There are two things I want you to take away from this video. One, drop boards are very important. Regardless of whether you own a bow press or not, having a drop board is super critical. It's super cheap, it's super inexpensive. I mean, it's super simple to make. I mean, I am not a rocket scientist. I'm a middle school English teacher, and I can figure this out. It's not that bad. And as long as you have structural integrity with this thing, just like with your broadhead and your arrow system, as long as you have structural integrity with this thing, it's not going to break on you. So you're only talking with a 60, 70 pound bow here. You're not talking hundreds of pounds of shear strength, all that sort of stuff. And the way I build it is super overbuilt, and I'll show you two ways you can do it. One, I'll show you how I've done it on my bench where it's in a fixed position, and then this way here first is what I'm going to actually show you, which is the mobile system, which is how probably most of you are going to do this. You could store this like a baseball bat or a hockey stick in the corner of your bedroom, your workshop. Heck, you could put it in your living room behind the couch. It's one 8-foot board, a couple of nuts and washer with a carriage bolt, either 3/8 or 1/2 inch, depending on what you find cheapest and easiest. Doesn't have to be stainless steel this and super expensive that. The most expensive part of it is actually the winch, and it's 20 bucks. If you want to add turnbuckles and scales, obviously you're adding more. I do use the scale anyway. I don't use the turnbuckle, but I do use the scale because I work on a lot of different people's bows, and they want to be set at a particular poundage. I just set mine at the factory specs, and the peak weight is what I assume it to be, presume it to be, and that's what I go from here. So let's readjust the camera a little bit and let me show you exactly how I'm building this mobile modular drop board. There we go. I knew we'd get it. All right, got my fancy dancy sweatpants on here, down here at the workbench, and here we have the board built completely out already, and I'm going to turn it upside down here so you get a full expanse of what's going on. Usually you would build this out of one full 8-foot 2x8, which would of course be 1.5 inches by 7.5 inches if you don't know dimensional lumber specs, and that is plenty. These are 2 3/4 boards that I have laminated together, so 2 3/4 is obviously 1.5 inches, so we're at the same dimensional lumber. And I basically, as you can see from all the plethora of screw holes, I have basically just taken cheap drywall screws and just laminated the 2 major boards together, and then I cut it to 5 feet long. So this is from end to end, from where the post is going to go to the end, all the way to the back end where you would have the winch, is a total of 5 feet. That leaves me 3 extra feet to play with. Now again, mine looks real funky, right? Mine looks really weird because I've got a whole bunch of boards laminated together, but of course every pair of boards here would just be one 2x8. So here would be 1, 2, and then 3 for these feet. These are feet here on both ends, and I'll talk about this second board sandwiched here in the middle in a little bit. Runs you like $6 to $8 in a non-COVID year in particular. Dimensional lumber's pretty cheap. Does not have to be pressure treated. This definitely is not. This is just soft pine. Of that 3 feet, you could cut this to 2 1.5, and if you wanted to wall mount this or mount it to your bench, if you're not going to build it as an integral part of the bench that I have, which I'll show you later, you would not have to add these extra support plates. So these extra support plates on both ends are roughly about 14 inches long or so. This one here is 16 inches long, but that really doesn't matter. Like I said, you have about 3 feet of cutoff length, and all these are doing here is just beefing up the ends where you're going to bolt in either lag bolt or using nuts and washers, your winch down here on this end, and your post down here on this end. And this is of course the underside. I've seen some people make draw boards out of 2x4s or just 2x8s plain as it is. They might work out okay. I'd be afraid that you might get a little bit of bowing in the center with a 2x4, and I really like just having that extra peace of mind. And if you buy an 8-foot board, you're going to have cut off anyway. So I just cut everything with a circular saw and screwed it all together. And since you'd use nice soft dimensional lumber, you don't need to pre-drill any holes or or anything. You eventually will need to drill the holes here. So I took my winch base and basically approximately where I wanted here the hole for my 10-inch carriage bolt here, where I approximately wanted that, and I just have that squared away, and I have it far enough away from the foot here that I can get my big flat washer here. I don't want to have any interference. I want to use that flat washer here to displace some of the pressure here, and I'll show you here. So I have plenty of clearance here. I have well over an inch. So from the distance from the edge of the board, my pin is centered at 4.5 inches, or about almost 2 inches away from the edge of this foot here. The same thing is true down here at the other end. You have the base plate for the winch. The winch capsule comes out here. It's just one simple nut and bolt with a washer. And then I would just put this down here and take a pencil and a Sharpie and mark my holes just like you would with anything else. Remove this and then take and go ahead and drill. Or if you wanted this to be a permanent system, you could use lag bolts and a ratchet, and you can just lag it right in, right then and there. Like I said, mine is modular, so I do have 1/4-inch bolts, 4 of them, 3 that go here in the front, and 1 that goes in the backside, as you can see there. And you get a little bit of play. It's not super tight tolerances here, but the biggest thing when you go to install this on the board, make sure you don't install it on an edge, because your handle won't actually be able to rotate around. So make sure when you go to install this, you install it in the middle, or if you're using a 2x10 or some piece of scrap, make sure you install it so that your handle gets clearance on either the top side or the bottom side. In my case, it's going to be on the bottom side here, because I will have it posted down here, my post this way, and I'm going to have mine set up working here with my bow on my left side, because I'm left-handed, so this is where I like to keep the strength of everything. You could obviously flip it if you're right-handed and your winch allows for it. So you can get them cheaper with the cable, the steel cable, instead of the webbing or seatbelt type material, which is nice, but I don't like using that because you'll find that you'll actually end up grabbing this a lot. And there's nothing wrong with grabbing a steel cable, but the moment that your hand slips or it jolts forward on you and there's a burr in that steel cable, it's going to slice you open faster than you can say ouch. So really would rather avoid that. I'd have no problems. I get a little abrasion here around the edges here of this, but I mean, there's so much strength and integrity in this. I mean, our saddles are made out of this, seat belts are made out of this in your car. I have no qualms using this. Now, like I said, this is 5 feet long because you're not going to be exactly up here to the edge, either on either end with the post or with the winch itself. So you want to have plenty of room in here. Also, if you're going to add a scale, you're going to want that extra room as well. But mine is plenty long to handle up to 36 inches of draw length, and that's with the scale. So this is plenty long. You could make it shorter if you're not going to use a scale, or if you're only going to work on your own specific bow, but I made mine big enough that I can work on anybody's bow in any capacity that I need. If I have a turnbuckle in here, a scale in here, whatever, I have plenty of room. This is basically just now starting to put it together like a Lego. So whether it's on the top or on the bottom, so here would be my obvious alignment holes, but this is upside down, right? This is a foot, so I need to flip this over. So let's see here. I might as well get this back one started. Get a washer. So let's go ahead and grab another one. Now, if you wanted, you could use lock nuts here, or you could use lock washers. I don't have that. I just have the standard nuts and washers here. You could definitely do that. Really, I would prefer to do it with lag bolts. You know, a good 2 1/4-inch lag bolt, and really get this stuck in through here. But this is what it is. Let's get my socket here, and so it's going to be hanging down like so. And I would have full clearance down here in order for this to work. All right, so now we're going to come over here to the carriage bolt. You definitely don't want to be using a lag bolt here. You want to be using a carriage bolt, something that goes all the way through, and that's where you have the feet. Gives us plenty of clearance here on the backside. Basically, what I like to do is use a 3/8 or a half, and that finds that it works out with a little section of garden hose or beverage hose. You know, there's cents for the foot there at your local Home Depot or Lowe's. Slip that over there, and then you kind of have a rough guesstimation. This piece here, I actually didn't measure it preemptively here, comes out to 5 inches long, which is plenty of clearance sticking back on the outside here. Lots of room here for your bow handle. Also, this will give you plenty of room to allow for quivers and sight brackets for not bumping into your bench. You get plenty of clearance in that way if you're going to have this be in a vertical setup. It's going to have to, remember, this is going to have to get fed all the way through here. So I'm going to lock this onto itself from both sides. So let's see here. Let's get this as far up here. I'm going to go with the washer. And this might take a little bit of persuasion depending on how big you did your bolt. This is a 3/8. Again, you want to have enough clearance here that your feet aren't getting impeded. So I actually need to get right around there. So that's good there. Hose is cut a little short, but that's really okay. Plenty of play in there. That's not a problem. Then we'll go with my washer and nut on the backside. I don't even think I want to know how much structural strength is in a 3/8. My other one's a 1/2 inch that I had laying around the house. A 1/2 inch Carriage Bolt. So I've got a lot of structural integrity here. The cartridge installed here, and let's start pressing the bow. And then I'll talk about how you want to find out your draw length increments here. Some guys like to tack down like a big wooden yardstick. I just prefer just to measure and measure appropriately and then make marks on the draw board. All right, so I went and got my target bow, which is my elite result here, and I put my scale on here because there's a nice big J hook. You can get these J hooks or S hooks and just clip it into the clips that come onto these winches here. You could run a nice strong paracord or some other climbing rope if you're really anal about it. And I do not like to hook it into the D-loop. I like to go right onto the string itself. Very secure, and no chances of that D-loop breaking and the bow dry firing. Really prefer to have it just on the string. But a couple things you notice from having this in this horizontal position like this is that the bow A is tipping down to where all the weight is, which is where this Bow Freak stabilizer setup is. And it's also not even, right? This would be actually level and even, right? It's actually off kilter like this. And this is why I don't like having it in this horizontal mode. I'd much rather have it vertical where the bow is flipped up, just like you would be holding it, and I feel like I get a much more accurate reading. But at least let's show you here how this would work. You'll notice I haven't made any marks up here, and you can have your winch set into the click lock mode. I'm just going to run mine so you can click it like this, and you can go through each inch of the draw cycle. Heck, you know, probably 1/2 inch of the draw cycle. If you really want to get a weight reading and, you know, do a draw force curve or something like that, you can definitely do so. We don't have any bowing here, plenty of room, very stable, very secure. So let's go through the entire draw cycle. All right, so this is the absolute beauty now of having a draw board. I can check out my cam timing, which it is dead nuts perfect right now. Super pleased about that. Thanks, Elite, for making great bows. But now I can also come back here and measure my draw length exactly. I'll show you exactly how to do that. I just prefer to make marks on the wood. I don't like to tack down anything. I can check peep rotation when I'm all the way back here. But of course, if I had my scale on, I could check poundage. And when I'm all the way back here, you'll see that the bow is still leaning just a little bit. It's come more centered though, so I'm not going to pull on it. I don't want this bow to accidentally derail, but you'll see that it's leaning. Some people will put a brace, you know, underneath their stabilizer down under here like so. Notice I'm not putting my hand through the string. Another reason why I don't like this horizontal thing here. They'll put a stabilizing thing underneath the riser, or maybe they'll attach a bar coming up here, you know, like a 2x4, just to keep the riser level. And particularly if you're working on your own bows and your setups, you know, there's not an issue there because you're always working on the same material, you know, the same riser geometry and everything. But I prefer to work in vertical mode because you can work on all bows that way. Also, you'll notice we have to have it with the rest side up, right? Obviously, because we don't want our sight to be interfering. And notice by the distance here, and I'll get this distance again. I'm going to ballpark because I don't want to stick my hands down in there. I'm going to ballpark, like I said, around that 5 inches from the end of the board, and that will give you plenty of clearance for, I would say, 90+% of sight housings. You can make this even further out if you want to really get clearance, but you'll notice how far away my sight is from the edge of the board here. Lots of room. So let's let this down. Hold on to the bow because you're about to alleviate tension in case it's going to rock. And I will say that is the benefit of having this in horizontal mode. It won't fall, right? So as soon as you alleviate tension in vertical mode, it will fall. So let's talk about getting a mark on here for exact draw length. And I run the exact draw length for about 25 to 32 inches here. So let's get this bow off. So in order to actually measure draw length, which is incredibly important, there's actually a formula for doing it, and I don't know when the formula happened. I don't know why it is exactly the way it is, but it's 1 3/4 inches from the deepest part of the grip. So when we actually have a bow on here, this would be the deepest part of the grip, right? I'm going to put it out and upside down so you can see what I'm talking about. This is the deepest part of the grip in here, right? Not down in here, you know, not clear down in here. It's all the way up in here, the deepest part of the grip. From that point, you're adding 1 3/4 inches. There's the deepest part of the grip right there. And if I go to 22 1/4, that is actually a 24-inch draw length. Okay, so whatever 1.25 inches over this tape is showing is actually the draw length. So now if I go an inch from 22.25, which would be 23.25, there's 25. Go another inch from there to 24.25, there's 26. 25.25 is 27, and so on and so forth. To 21.25, there's 23. Go down to 20.25, there's 22. All right, so now I have this marked out from the center line from 22 inches to 32 inches, and that's going to cover everybody's draw length here. And again, that's from this point here to that mark, and then whatever that mark is, you have to add 1.75 inches, 1.75. So this 22 inch is actually 20.25 inches because I'm adding an extra inch, 21.25, 3/4 of an inch, gets me to 22, okay? So when I actually put this bow on here, there we go, we're at full draw. Click this into place. And here it backed off. It backed off about 1/16 of an inch. And this is where people like to add that turnbuckle, and they can kind of really fine tune that extra 1/16 of an inch. If you're standing here like this, it's easy just to take the winch, because there's a little bit of play in it, and just check here. So there it's touching. I run limb stops on this bow. So there it's touching there, and taking a peek down, I can see it's touching over here. So I see that this bow is in time, and we are coming in dead nuts at 31.5 inches because we measured, again, 1.75 inches. We're dead nuts, 31.5, exactly like the manual would say. Actually, I'm so impressed, I'm going to bring you over here and show you what I'm doing here. So there you go, 10.8. Right now, 31.5. Dead nuts, right? I can come over here and check my cam timing. So you can see that's the cable stop up top, but I run limb stops, so it's a little bit different. You can see the limb pad underneath there. Same thing's true over here. All right, so if you're a regular follower of the channel, you've seen this corner of the shop before. This is where I keep the draw board 99.9% of the time. I have the 4 holes here for my draw board. Again, this is a 5-foot gap from just back on the back side of this to where my peg is up here placed. I have 4 holes drilled in here, and you'll notice this one screw. This just keeps another section, about an 8-inch section of 2x4 on the back side. So I have 3 inches of wood here for those 1/4-inch bolts to go through. And you'll notice that up here is where the winch sits, but then down here is the actual 1/2-inch carriage bolt, and this one down here is galvanized because it's just what I had down floating around the shop. You'll notice that this is actually done very deliberately. This up here and this down here, I could have easily built this down here and made them even with themselves, but I actually wanted this lower than this, and this is why I like this vertical one a little bit different. When you actually grip the bow, your hand is lower than where you anchor, right? You anchor up here, but your hand doesn't sit in the same plane. It's actually lower. And that, for me, I feel, and maybe I'm just full of malarkey, but it gives me a good actual reference point of how my bow sits in time when I shoot it. Because if you start torquing and twisting your bow, pushing one cam in or out more with your grip, particularly if you shoot a cable stop bow and not a limb stop bow like my Elite Tour or my Elite Result, you might get different timing witnesses, I guess. Timing issues, not necessarily, I shouldn't say issue. Issue is a bad word. Well, what's the word I'm looking for? Timing references, maybe timing references where it looks like the top cam is more aggressive than the bottom cam, so on and so forth. Having this here, this is a little bit higher than this. I feel like it's more indicative of how it actually is when it's being shot. And it's the exact same build, right? I have another piece of 2x4 here on the backside, another 6-inch piece. Ran this entire 10-inch carriage bolt through here, 1/2 inch, piece of garden hose, the whole thing, and it just sits up here like this. And I can watch the rest cord here of my ham skis or Q80 ripcord, whatever, here, and then I can work the winch here. Now this here, where it's positioned compared to where it's positioned over there, I kind of have to hold this because otherwise it'll kind of fall down. So I have I'm holding on to that webbing, like I mentioned earlier. I'm holding on to that webbing, And I'm long, right? I'm 6'4", I got a long wingspan, so I'm able to reach everything very easily. You might have to shorten up this distance if you're going to run this vertically. Some guys will put like a big thick gum band here, like a wristband, that might be able to hold the bow in place if it's light enough. This bow is 7 pounds with everything on here, so it's going to pop a gum band off. So I do have to hold it. That's kind of the only downside of running a draw board that's vertical, is you got to find a way to either shorten this up and maybe try it with or without the scale or that turnbuckle, because the bow might fall off here. Well, a 2-minute long video turned, I'm guarantee you, into the double digits, but hey, at least you know how to make a draw board now and all of its benefits. If this video was helpful for you and I still left you with questions, follow links in the description below. Hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. Send me an email. Or even if you make your own draw board and you have other comments you'd like to add, drop them in the comment section below for everybody to enjoy. I'm sure we could all learn something from the entire archery community. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery. Archery hunting, if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation. And we'll get to see you next time.